Welcome back, Troglodytes, to Trogly's Guitar Show. My name is Yvette, and I guess I'm doing the intro segment for today. Today's video is going to actually be about my signature guitar. This is the Ibanez YY10 Slime Green Sparkle. I called it that because it's this kind of striking slime green color. It kind of reminds me of, I don't know if any of you watch Nickelodeon Slime Time Live, but that was kind of the primary inspiration behind this color palette. One thing you also probably notice about the guitar I'm playing is that it's covered in stickers. So my signature actually comes with a sticker pack that I drew because I went to art school, studied illustration, blah, blah, blah. I put them all over my amps, you know, my laptop. You can put them anywhere. You can also throw them away. Doesn't matter. Without further ado, I'm gonna bounce.
All right, a big thank you for Yvette for doing her little intro there and letting us know about how she designed the guitar and all that. But I think you guys want to know what happens when you buy just a regular production unit. Are these things actually any good if you don't have the skills of Yvette? She's such a fantastic guitar player. You know that, guys? I mean, check her YouTube channel out. I'm sure you can buy her songs in some locations. I'll leave some links in the description. I think she was the first guitarist that I was ever exposed to that does like that whole two-hand tap thing, like beyond well. Like I can't even fathom what she's actually doing. And she always seems to be able to create such melodic melodies that just really speak to me anyways. And she's got a whole bunch of that stuff on her YouTube channel. So once again, check her out. Links are in the description. So far, if you purchase one of these things brand new, it looks like we get a box that's very similar to like what we found the Ibanez Pias in. I personally like the boxes where you open them on the end because it uses slightly less tape and I'm never worried that they're gonna come out and undone. But here we go. Looks like we get some sort of a cardboard insert. Yeah, the guitar's secure enough. And I do have a bit of a confession to make. This is actually my second Yvette Young signature. My first one had a neck pocket crack, so I thought I would save the review and demo for one that's hopefully in slightly better shape. So here we go. So I remember when I first unboxed that other one, I thought this color was a little bit brighter than I was expecting. But when she started talking about the inspiration for this one, you know, being like that Nickelodeon slime green, it starts to make more sense. As I was expecting, because sometimes the photos on these at dealers, they can be a bit dark. Whereas in person, you know, it's a pretty light colored finish. It's got that sparkle all baked inside. And essentially this is Ibanez's S-type guitar, meaning kind of Stratocaster-like. Except for if you're kind of like a Gibson guy like me and you like the whole 3-on-a-side tuning thing, it's got that going for it. That's different from a Stratocaster. And honestly, the body shape itself, it's vaguely reminiscent of it, but it almost kind of has like some Telecaster vibes to it, because like you've got this metal plate, except for now you have a tone knob on it and your output jack instead of like everything else. But it's kind of just an interesting guitar. I mean, straight out of the box, I mean, you can tell it's got the satin finish on the back of the neck, but I would honestly say this feels better than those Pias, because the Pia kind of had a really strange satin neck, but maybe it's just because I like these slightly more rounded neck profiles. I mean, this one, I would describe it as kind of like a D shape, to be honest. It's got a shoulder and then it kind of rounds off. It's not completely flat back here. It's clearly well suited for her style. After a quick inspection here, looks like we don't have any finish pocket cracks on this one, so we should all be good to go. But other than that, it just looks like we get an owner's manual and our trem bar, an additional spring if we want it, and our setup tools. So cool, let's go ahead and throw this thing on the workbench and take an individual look at its parts and specs. Inside the Yvette Young signature. Now, any quality control issues we find on this thing, it's nothing against Yvette. I think, what was it, Philip McKnight also did a video. I think he titled his, "She's Great, but Is the Guitar?" I didn't actually watch his video, so I'm not sure what he found. But I did find a few things that I think we can talk about here. So first off, underneath our pickguard, it is just routed for 3 single coils. So, I mean, if you wanted to be crazy and modify your signature guitar, you would have to stick with single coils or do additional routing. As far as the cavities go, I mean, the routing itself, it's pretty good. However, if you're really looking here, the alder body, I mean, it's very splintered. That might just be the paint, but I mean, if you're looking for perfection on this, that's definitely something that you can say, okay, maybe they didn't do the best job on this. Coming from the Pia, which granted, it's like 3 to 4 times the price of one of these things and made in a different country, I mean, this was a little bit shocking. However, to be fair, I think that might just be the sparkles within the paint that didn't get a clear coat over top of them. But it's kind of an interesting setup that they've got going on here. So here we can see our output jack, which is loaded onto the front. Now this whole thing is very slightly domed. It's really thick. I mean, it feels rather substantial. Then we've got a tiny Korean-made pot on there with a capacitor. But that just mounts right here and in these 2 locations, and then that whole cavity just, blends into everything else here. So looks like we got another tiny Korean pot right there, and then a pretty basic PCB 5-way switch. And honestly, that feels pretty good. It's not like overly loud and it works, but it's just a master volume and a master tone here. And then our pickups, they're actually Seymour Duncan 5.2 pickups. You can see what these guys look like right here. And as far as the readings, 6.34 in the bridge, your middle position, about the same, 6.28, and 6.12 in the neck. Now your combination positions, we get about 3.14 and 3.19 here. Now this was kind of cool to see. Our bridge is a Wilkinson tremolo system. You also get the Wilkinson saddles there. They're all branded. Now I looked these things up. They're about $36 brand new. The model number is the WV6SB. So it should work pretty good for what it is. And that's pretty much what makes this whole signature Ibanez different than like other Talmans. You get the fancy pickups, upgraded hardware, and lastly, the biggest reason, the finish. Now Yvette has like a burnt orange colored looking one, and even though I kind of like green guitars, I really dig that orange one, so I really hope that comes out as a variation, or maybe I've just missed it because I wasn't paying attention. But I think that would be a sweet color to come out with next, because apparently these things sell really well. My musician's friend rep was like, yeah, we can't keep these things in stock. I was waiting, I think about 6 months for this thing to come in stock. So moving on from the alder body, we have a maple neck, and I've got to hand it to him. I really like the color of this maple neck. It's very uniform on the headstock, on the fretboard. It's got a nice aged look to it, but it's not like too over the top, and I'm actually really starting to like this neck profile. Compliments aside, the frets were rather atrocious out of the box. I did not polish these. I mean, they look kind of rusty, to be honest. For example, I did a very light polish job to this first fret, and you can see it's got a little bit of a luster to it. Everything else, I mean, this must have been stored away for a while or something in shipping, because I noticed straight out of the box, the frets were all like scratchy. They felt like Epiphone frets. So I'm hoping after a little bit of a polish job that they'll feel a lot nicer. There we go. We're looking much better. So I guess just keep that in mind. You might need to do a little bit of a fret polish or pay somebody to do that. I mean, this is by no means a professional polish job. It's just a little bit of a steel bowl. But this does have 22 medium frets. So they've got a good size to them, but they're not too big. And you've got the 25.5-inch scale length. And they nailed that pretty much right on. Gotta say, I'm not a fan of the fret wire that they're using. I mean, it feels just like the Epiphones. Like at $600, okay, I get it. They're gonna be a little scratchy, not highly polished. But at $1,100 for one of these, I think they should be doing her a little bit better. I mean, take a listen to this. Looks like we have a little bit of a ridge in the nut too. That just needs a little bit more filing. And speaking of filing, when they were trying to shape the edge of the nut, they actually got the finish just a hair right there. It's hard to see, but you can just barely make out that they went through the clear coat a bit. Man, it's actually doing the pinging on 2 strings. Your top B, your G. But thankfully the other strings seem to be okay. After about 10 minutes I was able to fix that though. Basically what happened is there's just a little ridge that this thing would go back and forth on. I think I picked up this little nut slotting set on eBay for like 10 or 20 bucks a couple of years ago. They're basically just little saw rods that you go back and forth on. It comes in handy in case you ever run into that issue. But speaking of catching you off guard, I really like the inlays that she chose here. Apparently they will glow in the dark, so here's a nice little B-roll shot of this under blacklight because that usually helps amplify what it'll look like. And when you're playing live shows and stuff in dark venues, that's definitely helpful, so I can understand why they put that on there.
Now the spec sheets on Sweetwater's website says it has a bone nut. It doesn't look like a bone nut to me, but I guess I could be wrong. As far as our neck specs here, 1.62 inches at the nut, so rather skinny. And then we move on to just about regular 2.03 here. First fret neck depth, 0.83, and 0.9 by the 12. So, I mean, it's a fairly substantial feeling neck. I mean, it's not big and beefy, but the kind of slightly D-shaped neck profile that we've got going on here. But I like the wood grain. So there's some kind of pros and cons going on with the neck of this one. But then the headstock. I like the headstock look. The Ibanez logo, you get a little bit of a wood grainage going on up here. Your truss rod is inside there if you need to adjust it. And 3 on a side locking Godo tuners. That was something that kind of made me happy to see, locking tuners on this stock. And you get straight string pull. Moving on to the backside though, nothing too crazy going on back here. You do have a cutaway, and they do have a slight sculpting right here just to make it easier to play. So they got rid of this sharp corner and they kind of took some of this away just to give you nice upper fret access. It's a 4 bolt-on neck. This is what your tremolo system looks like underneath that back plate. And for those of you curious, yes, a magnet does stick to that, and it's a nice big block. So this is a quality tremolo system. And you get your strap buttons right here. They kind of look like Schaller strap locks, but I don't think they are. Moving up the backside of the neck, that's kind of cool. You get a bunch of wood grain right there. Some mineral streaks, kind of like a pseudo volute back here. And then this lineup is made in Indonesia, and it's the YY Yvette Young 10 1P01 with locking Godo tuners. So it's pretty highly spec'd. I mean, what are my final thoughts on this, after actually looking at it? I feel that the factory kind of dropped the ball as far as, what type of fret material that they put on here, and a little bit on the setup work. I'm not usually too finicky about nuts, but I think missing those 2 uneven segments, and I seriously believe they did not put a bone nut on here, and kind of scraping the side of the finish right there. Ibanez could have done a little bit better on this particular one. All said and done, this thing weighs 7 pounds, 12.1 ounces, so let's go ahead and plug it in and hear how it sounds when an average Joe plays this. So as far as clean tones go, I mean, it's basically a Stratocaster. You got all those regular positions here. Can't really say anything bad about that. Yeah, I'd say that sounds pretty good. I mean, you don't have to do all the tappy stuff like Yvette does, but I mean, it kind of makes sense that you would want to if you bought our signature guitar. But honestly, I've got to say, I love the feel of this neck. I mean, I might not love the fret material because you can kind of feel a give when you're doing bends, but if you don't do a whole lot of bends, you're probably not even going to notice that. It's not necessarily a deal breaker. I mean, you could polish these up even further than I have. So as far as a good quality guitar, yes, it is, but is it worth the $1,100? That's only something that you can really decide. I mean, if I was given $1,100 and had to choose like an S-style guitar, I would definitely consider this because, you know, mainly being a Les Paul player myself, I've never found Strats, you know, super comfortable. Whereas this, it kind of reminds me of a Les Paul, except for it's got a few additional comfort cuts, like back here. It's really comfortable to sit with, as well as stand. So I could see how Yvette could make use of all this empty space, not having, you know, your toggle switch here. So yes, I would suggest checking one of these things out. Maybe you'll get a little bit better quality control on your particular example. But I didn't really see anything too egregious on this one that makes me say, no, you don't want to buy it. However, you are paying a premium because it is a signature guitar. I don't think this review would be fair or complete to Yvette if I didn't at least try her tuning out. So troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed my little overview of the Yvette Young signature Ibanez. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.